The story of the Saw films revolves around the Jigsaw Killer, who forces people into situations where they will experience more and more pain the further along they go, with the goal of giving them a greater appreciation for life itself. Coincidentally, this is also what it's like to do Saw the Ride at Thorpe Park. This is a Gerstlauer Euro-Fighter that opened in 2009, fully immersing riders in the Saw franchise. It's got a heavily detailed queue, immersive station, a pre-lift completely in the dark, and then 3 inversions with a 100-foot tall lift hill and a 100-degree beyond vertical drop. I first experienced Saw the Ride in 2018, and I can't say it was one of my favorites. Thematically, it is very well done, but the ride experience, well, could be better, to say the least. This is going to be my full in-depth review. I'm going to describe the ride experience to the best of my ability, and then you can decide for yourself whether this is something you'll want to experience. Starting first off with, of course, the theme. This is easily the most iconic thing about this attraction. You know, we always joke that the UK is full of these dark and really creepy themed rides, and it doesn't get much worse than this, like something that you would never see in the United States. And yet it is very popular at Thorpe Park, and they did the films justice. The attraction features many original props from the movies that you'll see in the queue. Plenty of creepy rusted metal gates, mannequins, torture devices. You'll see Jigsaw himself on his little bike. There's audio saying, "Do you want to play a game?" or "You escaped this time." So right away, if you're a fan of the films, this is 100% something that you should experience. I think that's the target audience who will probably find the greatest appreciation for this attraction. That being said, if you're just looking for a good roller coaster, unfortunately, Saw the Ride has a few issues, with the number one complaint being how it rides. You see, Gerstlauer Eurofighters tend to be hit or miss based on its smoothness. Their newer rides, such as Hydrus at Casino Pier or Adrenaline Peak at Oaks, run glass smooth. Older models, such as this or Mystery Mine at Dollywood, absolutely are showing its age. And while I personally never experienced this ride when it opened, I have been told that Saw has aged very poorly, getting worse and worse over time. The track features multiple potholes, and when you have those bulky over-the-shoulder restraints, Saw is notorious for headbanging, so this attraction is not going to be for everyone, to say the least. But that doesn't mean that it's all bad. Let's discuss its pros and cons and walk through that ride experience. We'll start off with the station. Saw features a dual load setup so you can have 2 vehicles going at once, which is essential when you only have 8 passengers at a time. Luckily, you don't even have to wait for passengers to put their items on the other side. There's a baggage hold right before you get up to the load platform where you pass your bags off to someone in exchange for a wristband. It's a great system that you can actually see throughout the UK, and it means that they can really pump out those vehicles, so that line is generally continuously moving. That being said, we're only looking at a theoretical capacity of between 600 and 800 riders per hour. Depends how many vehicles are on the track, so this is one of the lower capacity roller coasters in the park, meaning if you're there on a busy day and it's something you want to experience, I'd probably recommend hitting this early on. And then if you don't like it, good news, the roller coasters can only get better from here. But interestingly enough, the 2 ride vehicles in the station will dispatch at a time, meaning whether you're in the first or second vehicle, your ride experience will slightly vary. If you're in vehicle number 1, you'll slide on forward, but in vehicle number 2, you come to a stop where a little jigsaw rider comes up on a bike and starts to talk to you. The reason for this is actually because you're just waiting for that first car to clear the block zone ahead. With so many straight sections on this track to accommodate for the different vehicles, they had to theme up the different areas so it didn't get repetitive or boring. Can you imagine a roller coaster with just a million block sections and no theming? When you finally move forward, you'll take a right-handed turn and descend down a super steep indoor drop. Really pulls you under, and I imagine is very unexpected for most people. I love this little countdown clock right before you descend down the drop. It's literally like, this is how much time you have left before you die. And the time actually stays consistent with a clock that you'll see later on at the base of the lift hill. As you descend down this drop, you'll notice strobe lights lighting up a series of spikes directly ahead of you. That's a super close near miss. You'll start banking to the left, and then you flip into inversion number 1 and emerge into the outside world. So yes, Saw the Ride features an inversion before the lift hill, and that is awesome. This indoor section in general is probably the best part of the roller coaster. I love the theming, even little details that you probably wouldn't notice unless you are really paying attention. For instance, under the first inversion, you pass directly over a naked dead body that is based off of one of the movies where a guy cuts off his foot in order to escape and the other guy dies. There he is, although new for 2024, they painted some shorts on him, so he's no longer nude. But that first inversion, I tell you what, is pretty fun. It's a slow-moving inline twist that gives you some good hang time, probably my favorite inversion on the ride. That left-hand turn will take you into a brake run, and then you'll turn 180 degrees to the left to enter the base of your lift hill. You'll see that countdown clock again with a little less than 30 seconds to go. The idea is that your death is coming at the bottom of the first drop, so it's helping to build anticipation. You begin that vertical climb, crest over, get a very brief but good view of Thorpe Park, and then descend down 100 degrees. So easily the steepest attraction in the park, the second steepest in the UK, right behind Mumbo Jumbo. And I hope you're bracing yourself because the bottom of this drop is brutal. You can literally see in this footage all the riders' heads move the same direction, slamming into the restraint. If I can make a recommendation, keep your head forward. That way you won't slam your ears. From here, you'll shoot back up towards the sky, wrapping around some saw blades and flipping over into an Immelman in version number 2, flying right past the lift hill, switching directions to the left, heading back towards the ground, and then rising up into an airtime hill. Saw does feature a few good moments of ejector airtime. That includes this hill as well as the main drop, and those are awesome sensations. It just sucks that anytime the coaster is turning right or left, your head just gets slammed to the side. But I guess as long as you're traveling in a straight line, you're fine. So you got this left-handed turn, you abruptly jolt into the mid-course brake run. Luckily, you don't slow down. So this part actually keeps a pretty good pace. There's another small drop, and then you flip into a very tight dive loop. And this is very rough. I love a good dive loop, but not this one. This is probably one of the roughest moments on the ride. But luckily, you're almost done. At the bottom of this trench, you turn to the left, and then slam into the final brake run. And that is Saw the Ride. It is very intense, it is chaotic, and just too dang rough. Pretty much anytime you're experiencing moments of positive G-forces, so like in those valleys, for instance, you're going to experience a huge shake that you gotta brace for. And when you're prepared for it, that's what makes it not as bad. But if you're riding this for your first time, you're gonna get beat up. This thing needs a good retracking. It's easily one of the roughest Gerstlauer Euro-Fighters out there. And if you're not going to retrack it, I think one big improvement you could make is switching out the over-the-shoulder restraints for lap bars. There are plenty of Eurofighters at this point that feature lap bars, so it should be possible as long as those new vehicles wouldn't conflict with like the clearance envelope. That's one of the things I've also been saying about Mystery Mine, how much better that ride would be with a lap bar. But some of those turns are just so tight that I don't know that new vehicles would actually work. Here, I think they would have a bit more leeway. It's just expensive. At that point, they'd really have to determine whether or not that improvement would be financially worth it. But if you don't want to change out the vehicles, one thing that Thorpe Park could do is put in these protective pads on the inside of the over-the-shoulder restraints. Glenwood Caverns recently did this to their Eurofighter Defiance, and it was a night and day difference. It was like having pillows on either side, and it greatly reduced head banging. And if anyone from Thorpe Park is watching this, I highly encourage them to look into it. Because as of right now, the ride is themed to pain, and that is just all part of the experience, I guess. But if you want as smooth of a ride as possible, I recommend the inside seats and the back row. That tends to be a trend with these Eurofighters, where the back row is actually smoother than the front, which is a little counterintuitive. Usually we associate the front with being smooth, but not here, which sucks because that means if you're not sitting on an inside seat in the back row, your ride experience won't be as good. That means 25% of the seats are actually quote-unquote good, and that's not what makes a great attraction. So for Saw the Ride's final score, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. And that's because for me personally, this is not an attraction I enjoy. In my opinion, it is not a must-do experience. I completely get if you want to do it once, but be prepared that you might not want to do it again. And it's just a shame because I genuinely want to like it. I really like some Eurofighters, but this one just is unpleasant. I have no issue skipping this attraction when I go to Thorpe Park. And for a major roller coaster like this, I feel like that's not what you want to hear. You should want to do every big roller coaster every time you go. That's how you know you have a good lineup. And I'm aware that Saw the Ride has its diehard fans. And if you're one of those people, hey, let me know down in the comments below what you really like about it. For me, I think it's the theming and the indoor section, but unfortunately after the lift hill, that just ain't it. But thank you guys so much for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please go check out the Coaster Reviews playlist featuring rides from all across the world in alphabetical order. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.